Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call our meeting to order. It's Thursday, March 2nd, 2023. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast by WCTV and audio recorded by Dr. DeAndrea this evening. Would you please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm hoping that this evening we have a very streamlined and efficient meeting, partly because there is a basketball tournament game going on up the road, and we hope to be able to support the team, maybe get there by the end of the before the end of the second half. With that in mind, I'm asking to have a motion to table the following agenda items this evening. Number 4, the student representative report, who is at the basketball game. Number 7, the student attending report. Number 8, the principal's reports. And number 10, the website presentation. All of these will occur at our next meeting or the meeting right after that.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 500. Thank you. So we will start with public participation. And seeing no members of the public here tonight, we'll move on to good news. Joyce?
I just want to wish the students at the high school who are going to the state DECA competition next week, I just want to wish them all good luck in the competition.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Well, we should say the fact that the basketball team is the #1 power-ranked team in Division 4 is to their credit, no matter what happens in the playoff games. I look forward to seeing them perform well.
That is correct. Thank you.
And I believe the boys' track team had a really good showing at the state, the ones that qualified as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
And I do want to say the reason I was absent at the last meeting was because I had the privilege of driving the boys and girls to the division finals at the Reggie Lewis Center. They were a treat to watch, and they were great sports, and as well as great athletes.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to minutes of previous meetings. We've got to play a little catch-up here. So we have meetings from 2/17, 3/3, 3/17, 4/7, and 4/28, all in 2022. I'm going to accept a motion to accept those.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion?
Can I vote?
You should probably abstain on these,
That's what I was
correct?
thinking. Yep,
Thank you. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
abstain.
401. Thank you. Next, we have the school district calendar. Dr. DeAndrea?
Yes, good evening. In your packet was a draft for the school year 2023-2024 school year. This was developed initially by Andrea, reviewed by myself, went to the admin team that reviewed it, then went to the union that reviewed it. There were some revisions made, but this is the final product. It needs the final stamp of approval by the school committee. It basically mirrors what our calendars have been in the past, no real major changes.
Any questions or comments?
I just want to make sure I'm reading this right. So as of this, the way that this is worded, the 180 days, so the last day of school without snow days would be June 14th, and then does that fall on a Friday? Is that why if it would be additional, it would then go the 17th to the 24th if there were snow days? Okay.
Correct.
I was just clarifying. All right, thank you.
Just curious, the revisions, anything consequential?
No, we had talked about, if we were going to start back the week of the 24th, and, just looking at start dates, different options. So that was really it, just the start date and, some of the PD days, things like that, making sure they don't conflict with MCAS and all those kinds of things.
Good, thank you.
Do I have a motion to accept the 23-24 district calendar?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 500.
Thank you.
Next up, we have obsolete furniture, and a vote on that.
Where? Oh, my goodness.
Thank you, Ms. LaSorsa.
Bonnie LaSorsa, Director of Technology. So our list today is really the result of 2 years' worth of E-rate projects. The project that was scheduled for the 21-22 school year was delayed due to some shipping issues with the company. So over the Christmas holidays and February break, we were able to do a complete revision of the middle school and high school networks, which is the servers on there. The Chromebooks, most of those are ones that have either reached the end of their life or our techs cannot repair due to the damage to them for whatever reason. Most of the time, they can replace screens, keyboards, hinges, whatever. Every once in a while, there's a few that they can't repair. So we've been trying very diligently to consolidate all the equipment in the last year and a half and clean out things in the last year and a half, so we're just about there. Any questions about it?
April?
So my question is, I know that previously, not, I don't believe to you directly, but I know that I had asked the previous superintendent I know that when things get declared obsolete, that there are some things that we do recoup expenses for, and I had asked several times for a monetary amount of how much we have gotten back for obsolete items. I'm not asking you to prepare that at some point, but I would like to know, because I never got the information, just how much when we do declare things obsolete and we are able to recoup some of those expenses back or sell the items back, what that number has been, if at all possible, like a report would be great.
So I actually know that one, because I actually presented about it. I found a company that said that they would buy our Chromebooks back, so Chromebooks have an end-of-life date where they will no longer update. And once they won't update, then they're not secure to give to our students. So it was every 5 years. Now the brand new ones are up to 8 years. And once they hit that date, we can't do anything. They're just not safe. So there was a company that said that they would purchase them, give them back to us, and then we could sell them in town to residents for like $50. Unfortunately, when we got all through that, we ended up with about $300 credit, which we spent on some other tech equipment, on a printer actually. And they can't make it work with Google to update that. So we're still looking for places. It's like we get $50 here, it's like $2 for a desktop. It's not a lot of money, but we're trying and we keep looking for new places. So I just had a webinar the other day with a new company that said they might be able to, because it makes sense.
Well, I mean, it wasn't just for tech, it was for anything that we've declared obsolete, but thank you, that's helpful. I appreciate it.
Sure.
This almost sounds like the definition of what used to be called planned obsolescence. Google makes sure that they become obsolete,
They do. Yep.
which assures them a revenue stream for.
To be fair, with students, 5 years is actually quite a long time. So, I mean, that's our goal my goal going forward is that every kindergartner or first grader, fifth grader, and ninth grader would get a new Chromebook. So that sort of gives us the 4 to 5 years.
And if they change it to 8,
Would be awesome.
I
right.
think my son's had the same Chromebook since 8th grade.
Yeah, he should have. Yes, he has, actually.
And the opposite question is, when they can't be sold, they're literally, paperweights, we dispose of them correctly?
Yep. We go through an electronic recycling center.
And you have a confidence that it's a reputable firm?
Not only do we have the confidence, but we get certification for all hard drives and anything that could have data on them. We wipe them here, and then they wipe them there as well, and we get a certification letter back. They give us, there's a cost per weight. It's not very much, but it's something that comes back in the form of a credit.
And when they're disposed of, it's appropriate for the environment?
To the extent that it can be. Yes. I mean, some of it you can't, yes. They recycle it to the best of their abilities, that we have that technology now to do that with.
Okay, thank you.
Do I have a motion to accept this IT list for obsolete furniture?
So
So,
moved.
seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 500. Thank you. Next, we have the superintendent's reports.
Thank you. First on my report are a couple of gifts. $2,477.09 has been donated from the John W. Deacus Community Center Foundation to the Wareham High School class of 2023 to defray senior class dues payments for students with financial hardships. And also, we received some Apple chargers from Locust Robotics that has been donated to the schools. And so I ask that you accept these two very generous gifts.
So moved.
Jeff?
I agree they're generous. Who gets to decide how that almost $2,500 is actually allocated?
The high school. I don't know the exact person.
My guess it would probably be either Scott and the advisor for the senior class, because some
Yeah.
students may have already paid their dues.
I
so
can certainly find that out for you.
That's not an insignificant amount, and it's very generous, and it's probably really appreciated by those students that have the financial hardships. So I'd like to make sure it's done well.
I would guess, and again, it would be a guess, and I can certainly get you the information for the next meeting, because it's 9 cents at the end, that there has been some work done prior, that somebody perhaps reached out and said, we want to help, let us know how much money, and so.
You don't even need to get back to me. As long as you're confident it's being done well, I'm satisfied.
Thank you.
So we had a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? 500. April?
I just want to also thank that donation as a parent to the class of 2023, that I think that's going to be, really helpful, because I know there are some students that work to pay their own dues. And I think it will really, really help them defray the costs, especially with how much it costs to apply to all the colleges and all the deposits they have to put down. So I think it's a very generous and appreciated gift for the class of 2023.
Agreed. Thank you.
Yeah.
Also on my report are the bill and payroll warrants, and listed in my report, and I ask that you please vote to approve those warrants.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 500. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we go next to school committee report. And first is the policy on library material selection and adoption.
So the Policy Review Committee voted to adopt this policy. This was taken from MASC. The only thing that was changed from the initial policy as presented was addition of the word classroom to encompass classroom libraries, as the elementary schools did not have an actual library. And most teachers have a small library in their classroom. And it was a unanimous vote to accept it with adding that change, as we didn't have a policy that existed before that.
Any comments or questions on that policy? Joyce?
So I just, so the addition of the word classroom, I just had some questions about that, it doesn't say classroom library, it just says classroom, so obviously there's a different policy for textbooks, right? But when you're talking about the younger grades, maybe if we added the word classroom library materials, that would make a difference?
I believe that was the intent, was classroom libraries, so the libraries that teachers set up. So to me, that makes sense.
Okay.
So if we said, for example, initial purchase suggestions for school library or classroom library materials may come from.
Yeah, that was the intent, was to make it encompass those, but if I'm okay with the added clarification.
My only question is that it says the librarian will recommend materials to be included in the school library or classroom library, I guess. But two schools don't have librarians, so how does that work?
I think it was, I think that might have been an oversight. It was just a generalization. Like I said, the policy was, we took from MASC as it was and just amended that portion of it. Maybe the librarian at schools with libraries could be where we'll recommend, or the librarian at, if a librarian, you know, I don't know how to, I think maybe just adding at schools with one, or the librarian, if applicable, would probably make it make more sense, because it's not applicable if there's no librarian there. So I think that the librarian, if applicable, maybe in parentheses, will recommend materials to be included. If we adjust that sentence to say that, that might be helpful.
Or librarian or responsible staff member. I mean, somebody is responsible, if there's no librarian, somebody's responsible for what is put into the library.
Well, the next sentence says it's, the principal has the ultimate authority.
For the funds to buy the materials in the library.
Yeah, but it's not going to go into the
Right, without it.
purchase. So
Right.
in essence, it's,
So that brings up another question when you say the funds. So that implies funds that might come out of the budget for the purchase of books. But we all know that there are teachers who spend their own money on books. So I'm just thinking of the teacher who might go to the book fair and buy 10 books to put, so how would that
I
policy?
think that would fall us underneath it, where it says gifts of library books would be accepted. So if a teacher is buying them as a gift for her own classroom, I would assume that that's a gift for her class library. And I would say under gifts of library books will be accepted in keeping with the above policy on selection.
I agree that the
Yeah.
phrase distribution of funds is perhaps unnecessarily narrow. Meaning you could just have final approval and authority for the materials included rests with the building principal. You don't need to say distribution of funds.
So then that would cover all materials, not
Exactly.
just,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
I
they probably
agree.
have that legal authority already.
Mr. Sweat, can you just point that out again?
The final sentence of that paragraph,
Okay.
I'm recommending the final approval and authority for the materials will rest with the building principal. I'm just taking out distributions of funds
Okay.
and inserting the materials.
So the only question I would bring up, and I'm kicking myself as I'm asking the question, do the superintendent and principal want the onus on them of materials that are selected to go in the library on them, or is that supposed to be on, should that be on the librarian?
Well, the way I see it, I mean, so what line are you referring?
Well, I'm just saying, it says, "If final approval and authority for all materials will rest with the building principal, subject to approval of the superintendent." Buck stops with you and not with the
Yes, I mean,
librarian.
ultimately, I am responsible.
Yeah, exactly. I don't
And
think you can avoid
so,
Okay,
I'm okay with that.
And I
Yeah.
think
okay, I just want to make sure you were okay with that.
I think this policy mostly was encompassing how and why books and stuff were chosen, and that if there was someone in the public who did take issue with any of them, having this in place because we didn't have one previously, and then referencing the policy on complaints and and instructional materials that we approved at the last meeting, it will defer them to that if there's any issue. So it's more just setting the stage that we have a policy in place. If you take issue with it, that's the policy that you then go to then escalate it up through the proper channels if there's ever an issue. I think that was more what
Okay.
the thought process of having it and adopting the previous policy.
Any other questions or concerns? Jeff?
Yeah, in number 4, trying to figure out what a controversial issue is for any one person. So I would like to insert between of and controversial, widely accepted controversial issues.
I don't necessarily think that's necessary, because what's widely accepted to one population might not be widely accepted to another. I think just having controversial would be enough?
I think you're trying to you're not saying widely accepted by people, you're saying widely accepted as controversial.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. That's exactly what I'm saying.
So like as an example would be, so if,
Well, I don't want the librarian, or for that matter, the principal or the superintendent, think they have to have materials on the fact that the Holocaust didn't exist. It seems to me that's absurd, okay? Even though there are people who assert that. Well, okay, they can assert that, that's freedom of speech, but I don't want the librarian to have to find materials to support that position.
because that's not a widely accepted controversial
I
issue.
see what you, I see what you're saying.
And I'm sure I could come up with other
But
examples.
I
think
I would
it was
argue that's
only if
not a
asked.
controversial issue. I mean,
Well,
because.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
You know, one person's controversy, one parent comes up before us and said, this, and therefore, it's a controversy, and so I want material in the library to support my position.
Well, how about if it says, if cannot provide materials on opposing sides, give like a link of, give a reference sheet to where they could get that material of the opposing side. That way it's not on the librarian. That person then has the information to do that research on their own. And the librarian is just providing the reference tool for that. Because then it doesn't fall solely on the librarian to choose which type of opposing controversial material that they're providing. You're giving them an option, like a list that says, here's a list of books that would cover this topic. The public library or the Wareham Library may have them or may be able to get them for you. That's not something that we keep in our library particularly.
No, but what they're saying, though, is that librarians should keep opposing issues in their libraries. They should.
And for most things, but I'm saying,
Right.
like, as an example, if it's something that they don't have and you don't want the librarian to feel that they have to search for something like that, we could provide they could provide a reference sheet where those could take the names of publications and be able to reference them on their own, but us not have to provide them.
But I wouldn't want to put that on our librarian. I wouldn't want to give our librarian that
I wouldn't either.
responsibility.
To make a reference sheet?
Yeah, for
Of,
someone who,
of,
Even a link.
of controversies that aren't really accepted controversies.
right.
Yeah.
So to use Jeff's example, so that would mean that our school librarian would have to take time out of his or her day to provide this list just because someone asked for it. I wouldn't want,
But any librarian's gonna have to prepare a list of anything if somebody asks for it. Like if someone goes to the public library and it's not something that they have, their job as the librarian is to find that book, whether it's in another library or another system, to get in or refer that person to, generally.
well, I just don't feel like that's the job of our school librarian.
We are giving her the responsibility to determine what's widely accepted, but I'm comfortable with that. But this is just too open-ended. Provide materials on opposing sides of controversial issues.
Well, it depends on who's deciding what's controversial.
Right, and if it's widely accepted, which is the phrase,
Right.
I'm not married to it, if there's a better phrase.
Right.
But if it's widely accepted, she has the authority to say, I'm sorry, I do not believe that's widely accepted, and I'm not going to.
But couldn't she say, I don't think that's a controversial issue, I think that's settled?
Or you could say that I defer that to the superintendent, because.
That's settled. I mean, the vast majority of people know
I
the
wasn't trying to take a
Holocaust.
lot of time on this.
Right, but-
So if you're comfortable with it as
What if you
written-
add the word sides of common controversial issues?
Or what if we just remove the whole number 4? No, really, like,
Well, no,
could we
because
not?
I think it covers their bases, that if they have to have both sides of an issue, people saying that you only are showing one side, it does show, no, we're not, we're actually able to show both sides. I think that covers any sort of biases
But
that might be
we've-
accused.
like-
of
But
any-
number
I like what Dr.
2
DeAndrea said
But number
about,
2 addresses factual knowledge. So
but
we have,
but if you leave it to the professional judgment of the librarian to say whether or not something is a controversial issue, I think that's giving her the professional courtesy that she deserves, or he deserves from the training. And so you could, in theory, leave it like this, and that's understood.
Right.
I hear what you're saying. but
I've
I-
expressed my concern, but that's okay. If you're comfortable with it as written, I'm okay.
That being the case, do I have a motion to accept,
As amended?
as amended, the library material selection and adoption policy?
So moved.
Second.
And may I? Just
Yes,
to
you
make
may.
sure, the amendments are to add library after the word classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mr. Sweat's suggestion for materials,
Authority for the materials.
materials.
Will rest
Will
with-
rest with building principal.
And removing for distribution of funds.
Correct.
Okay.
And are we going to do library classroom twice? Because classroom appears,
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
In both. Okay, I will revise that and we'll be good. I'll get it out to you guys so you can see it too.
So we had a motion and a second, I believe.
yes.
All in favor?
Wait, could I just ask
Oh,
another question?
yes, you may.
Sorry. Summer reading materials, sorry, I don't want to make this longer, but which policy would cover that? Not this one? Would it be
No.
a different policy? Okay,
It would be a different, I don't know which one, but it would not fall under here.
okay. All right, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 500.
So the
Thank you.
second half of this is to suspend the previous library materials selection policy that was attached to, in your packet, the second one. So it's to suspend that because we now adopted that,
So
so.
moved.
Second,
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 500.
thank you.
Thank you. Dr. DeAndrea, for the new policy on student travel, you're recommending we table that for
Yeah,
this evening?
please, I need to do a little bit more work before I bring it to the committee.
Okay, so just to stay consistent, do I have a motion to table a new policy?
So
So
moved.
All in favor? Second. Brennan, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 500. Lastly, the summative report evaluation timeline, procedure, and discussion. We discussed this 2 meetings ago, but basically, March 31st is the deadline for Dr. DeAndrea to give the committee members his self-evaluation and evidence that we can use for our evaluations. April 14th will be when the individual evaluations are due to the chair from all members of the committee. And then on April 27th, we will share the comprehensive evaluation in a public meeting with Dr. DeAndrea. Any other business?
Can I just ask, you've shared the evaluation form with the whole committee, right? I believe you sent it
I
out.
believe, it was about a month ago or something, I sent it out, but I will send out a blank
Okay.
Google Doc form that they can use
Okay.
to fill out.
All right, just so everyone has. it,
Yeah,
so
I'll
they
get that
know
out
what
soon.
we're- Okay.
Any other business?
The next policy review committee meeting will be next Wednesday, the 8th, and that will be tentatively our last policy review committee meeting of the year. So we do have a lot of policies to review that day because we did have several things tabled over multiple meetings to address. So at the next school committee meeting, my report will possibly be a little bit longer. I'll read fast.
Thanks,
but we'll-
you always do, thank you. All right, then,
Motion to adjourn?
do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? 500, the meeting is adjourned.
There you go, Kevin. You beat
Good
me.
luck.